This all began on September 9, 2025, at approximately 3:46 p.m., when despite the presence of U.S. Air Force assets in Qatar, Israel launched an unprecedented attack on Doha, Qatar. Israeli Air Force jets, reportedly 8 F-15S and 4 F-35S, launched air-launched ballistic missiles, ALBMs, over the Red Sea, an international waterway that offered Israel a tactical advantage and minimized immediate detection risks. The missiles flew over Saudi airspace at high altitude, bypassing its radar coverage, and struck a residential complex in the Lek-Taifia district. The target of this strike was a compound hosting Hamas political figures who were present in Doha as part of sensitive ceasefire and hostage release talks mediated by Qatar. At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump, speaking publicly about the attack, stated, "I was very unhappy about it. We got to get the hostages back," reflecting U.S. displeasure over how the strike was carried out, according to international news reports. These talks in Doha were happening in the shadow of Israel's ongoing bombardment of Gaza, where tens of thousands of Palestinians had already been killed, and where civilian areas were under continuous threat. To give viewers perspective, the spark for the broader conflict was the October 7 attack in 2023, when Hamas-led militants struck inside Israel, killing about 1,195 people, civilians, plus security, and triggering a massive military response. So the Doha meeting was not just symbolic, it was deeply tied to the hostage crisis, the Gaza war, and regional stakes. The attack resulted in the deaths of 6 individuals, including Humam al-Hayya, the son of Hamas leader Yahya al-Hayya, along with several bodyguards and Qatari security personnel. U.S. surveillance and defense systems reported that there was no prior indication of this surprise attack. Lieutenant General Derek France, commander of U.S. Air Force's Central Command, stated that they had received no indications or warnings before the strike occurred. Qatar's radar systems also failed to detect the incoming Israeli jets or missiles. The U.S. Patriot air defense systems stationed in Qatar were not designed to intercept ballistic missiles from high-altitude trajectories, rendering them largely ineffective. Qatar strongly condemned the attack as a violation of its sovereignty. Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani described it as a gross violation of international law and demanded immediate accountability from Israel. The incident raised critical questions about the credibility of U.S. defense commitments in the Gulf. Despite having bases, assets, and agreements with Qatar, Washington failed to anticipate or prevent the attack, casting doubt on the effectiveness of America's security umbrella in the region. For Gulf nations, the strike was a sobering reminder of their dependence on external protection. States that had long trusted U.S. intelligence and military power suddenly felt vulnerable, realizing that even advanced systems might not shield them from such precision strikes. This growing sense of vulnerability across the Gulf set the stage for urgent strategic calculations, most notably, Saudi Arabia's decision to pursue a deeper defense partnership with Pakistan. The shocking events in Doha exposed the vulnerability of Gulf nations and forced Saudi Arabia to rethink its defense strategy. For decades, Riyadh had relied on the American security umbrella, believing that U.S. forces, bases, and Patriot systems were enough to guarantee its safety. But the Qatar strike revealed a bitter truth. Even with the world's most advanced surveillance and defense networks, allies could still be left exposed. It was in this climate of uncertainty that Saudi Arabia began to search for alternatives. The kingdom, under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, asked a simple but profound question. If America cannot shield its closest partners, then who will shield us? Historically, Washington had tied its security guarantees with conditions. Agreements dating back to the Cold War era, and later reaffirmed in post-9/11 strategic frameworks, made it clear that protection came at a price. Riyadh was expected to align its oil policies, foreign decisions, and even arms purchases with American interests. Saudi leaders often viewed this as a compromise of sovereignty. Former kings and ministers repeatedly voiced concern. Security cannot mean surrendering independence. That unease now transformed into action. For the first time in decades, Saudi Arabia looked eastward toward Pakistan. But the question is, why Pakistan? The choice was not accidental. Pakistan had stood by Saudi Arabia in critical moments, training its soldiers since the 1960s, stationing Pakistani troops inside the kingdom, and providing military expertise whenever requested. But one episode in particular elevated Pakistan's credibility. In 2025, during a brief but intense aerial skirmish with India, Pakistan claimed that it had downed 5 Indian aircraft, including 3 Rafale, 1 MiG-29, 1 Su-30 MKI, and a Heron unmanned aerial vehicle, demonstrating its ability to defend its airspace with skill and precision. For Riyadh, this was no small matter. If Pakistan could hold its own against India, it could also serve as a credible shield for Saudi skies. Thus, by 2025, when the Gulf's security foundations appeared to crack, the kingdom decided it was time to move beyond dependency and formalize its partnership with Pakistan. This decision quickly took shape, On 17 September 2025, in Riyadh, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman signed what is now known as the Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement. The central clause of the pact was stark in its simplicity. Any act of aggression against one shall be considered an act of aggression against both. Though the full text has not been made public, officials confirmed it covered all domains of defense, from conventional forces to cyber and missile cooperation. Speculation immediately spread that the pact might extend to Pakistan's nuclear deterrent, though both sides carefully avoided direct confirmation. For Saudi Arabia, the symbolism was profound. For Pakistan, the pact marked the recognition of its role as a central security player in the Muslim world. At the same time, regional powers like Turkey closely monitored the Gulf developments, viewing the Saudi-Pakistan Defense Pact as a strategic opportunity. The agreement not only reinforced regional stability, but also offered Ankara avenues to enhance military collaboration, strengthen diplomatic ties, and expand economic partnerships with both Riyadh and Islamabad. Looking ahead, the SMDA could redefine alliances in the Middle East, potentially shifting the balance of power as Gulf nations seek diversified security partnerships beyond traditional Western guarantees. This agreement was more than ink on paper. It represented Saudi Arabia's quiet defiance of over-reliance on Washington, and a new chapter where the kingdom sought partners on its own terms. And yet, questions remain. How far will Pakistan go to defend Riyadh? Will Saudi Arabia be pulled into South Asia's rivalries? And what happens if Washington sees this pact as a challenge to its influence? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget like, share, and subscribe to stay updated, or you'll miss out on all the latest insights.